Hi, it's David. I'm a teacher at Still Life Ceramic Studios, and this is a continuing lesson in our Wheel 1 series of online instructions, and this is lesson 2 where we're going to talk about trimming. Okay, very briefly, right? Trimming is going to be our final forming process when we kind of do the finishing and refining of basically the bottom area of the pot, which is inaccessible to us when we're actually throwing, right? So just real quickly, most of our pots, when we start out, when we're learning, is they kind of come off the wheel sort of looking like this, right? Right, they've got this sort of little flare at the bottom, and hopefully our wheels, our walls are level, and we've got a little bit of height here, right? And so what we want to do is we just want to address this lower area, which was kind of inaccessible, and it's astounding how dramatically the feel of this piece would change by just if we just come in here and just take off this tiny little amount of clay, right? Just by removing that, we've gone from sort of this nebulous form into an actual cup or something. This feels like, wow, that feels like a finished product, something I could, drink out of or put stuff in. So it doesn't take a whole lot to make a big change, right? But let's say we really want to refine it even more, which is certainly something we want to strive for, because the chances are we have a lot of material in here. I'm going to say probably, I'd say we're like this. So with that in mind, right, all this material is something we can remove to kind of refine the shape. So let's say we wanted to put a little foot ring on here, so we come in here, we're going to start all the way here and remove this material like this, and then come in here and remove this material like this. Well, now that sort of very simple form is now something pretty sophisticated. Okay? So it really can be a very dramatic change in how your form feels. So let's get on with the process. That's kind of the idea. Now let's move on to the process. Okay, so we all in our kits got some kind of a trimming tool, either something like this or something like this. I think most of you guys got something like this. They're both going to be effective. Let's start with, I'm going to start with this one, just because. And the first thing we need to do, just like when we were centering to get our pieces ready to throw, we need to center our piece as well. So one of the easiest ways to do that is on your wheel or on your bat. Sometimes there's going to be like lines, and so try to use those lines to get yourself as close to center as possible. And then you just want to get your wheel going at a slow speed. And then you just want to bring your finger in and very gently just let it touch the piece. And you're going to let it touch, and it's just going to make a little mark, right? And if you stop your wheel, I'm hoping you can see that mark. It's probably difficult to see, but there's a mark right here where my finger touched. And what that's telling me is that this piece it's closer to this edge than it is to this edge. And to make the adjustment on that, I want to move it in the exact opposite direction. But I want to be very, very gentle with that, and just a tiny little movement, because you're kind of doing double work. You're moving it away from that edge, but you're also moving it closer to this edge. Okay? So we'll get it going again, and hopefully we're going to be right there. I think that's kind of close enough. A lot of times we're going to find when we're starting out that a lot of our pieces aren't perfectly round and aren't perfectly flat, and that's going to make this whole process a little problematic and a little difficult. But we're just, don't stress over it. Just kind of get it as close as you possibly can. And when you get to a place where you're thinking to yourself, okay, this is kind of it, I feel like I'm there, then go ahead and continue with the rest of the process. The next step, once we've sort of found our center, right, we're just going to get some excess clay. And what I like to do is I like to make a little, like a rope, just roll out a little rope like this, about 6 to 9 inches long, right? And then just kind of break it in half. And then I'm just going to curve it around my pot, the base of my, well, the lip, which is now the base of my pot. Just curl it around, right? And now, directly opposite, so that all the pressure is being balanced, I'm just going to push straight down onto the wheel head. And one of the things you're going to notice is when I push straight down, this clay moves, it pushes this way and it pushes that way, but it's also pushing this way, so it just grabbed hold. So I'm going to turn it now, and I'm going to do this again working directly opposite, not pushing in to the pot. All I need to do is push straight down to the wheel head. Okay? And here we go again, one more time. I'm just going to push straight down to the wheel head. And that's good and locked in. You could, if you wanted to be even safer, you could put a couple more blobs right here and do the same thing. But I feel pretty confident that we're pretty locked into our wheel head now. Okay, so the next thing, the first we want to do is we want to get our wheel going. Speed-wise, I would say something. It's hard, certainly not fast. Okay, I like to keep my hands working together, so I'm going to find center with my index finger, or my index finger, and just kind of rest it on the top of the piece. And then I'm going to bring my trimming tool in, and I'm working at 3 o'clock, and I wanted, if you can see here, I wanted to come in at an angle, I wanted to have like a 45-degree angle to the edge of the pot. And if you look on the side here, you can see that there's a sort of almost like a knife edge that I'm going to use. And what I want you to think about doing is cutting the clay away as opposed to scraping the clay away. I want you to actually kind of visualize in your mind you're cutting the clay away. And you're just going to bring the clay in, bring the tool in, and just let it do its work. The clay needs to be obviously, I probably should have mentioned this earlier, at a state we call leather hard, which is, it feels like rawhide. It's stiff but not brittle. Okay, it actually it'll bend a little bit, but and if you push it too hard, it can crack and break. But it literally does feel like rawhide. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I just want to take that sharp edge off, and to do that I'm just rounding. I'm just taking my tool and rounding it around just like this, just rolling it over the edge like that. Okay. So now that I've kind of got that. A lot of times too, now this is something interesting that you'll notice, is a lot of times your bottom will be a little uneven, so you're just going to have to kind of cope with that. Okay, so now that I've got that edge sort of round it off. And I could say, okay, I'm going to be done now, but I really want to refine this a little bit better. I want to actually put a foot ring on. So to do that, there's a couple of ways. You can kind of like make a decision here and go, okay, I want to make my foot ring here and make a mark to it, or you can just continue with your removing material until you feel you've gotten to a place where that outside foot ring, the outside of your foot ring, is appropriate to the form. Okay, so like I said, the other thing you could do is you could just make a mark. You could just say, okay, that's this edge is the outside edge of my foot ring, and then I'm going to come in here and then this ring, this center ring right here, that's actually going to be my foot ring. So now I just need to remove all this other material. So you're just sort of gently cutting away material and refining that form. Now, a lot of, one of the obvious questions that students ask all the time is, how do I know how do I know how much material to take away before I make a hole in my pot? The answer to that is you just kind of have to be somewhat instinctive. So check your pot, check the thickness. When's the best guess, right? You just feel your piece before you put it on the wheel head, and then you have an idea, and just don't worry about it. I mean, if you make a hole in your piece, you've just created a planter, and the world needs planters. Succulents look really good in ceramic planters. All right, so I'm just going to clear out that center. To create my little you can make it as clean and as nice as you want. The idea is to just reduce the amount of material that's going to come in contact with whatever surface it sits on. Okay. All right. So I'm kind of happy with that. I think it's a nice little foot ring. Sometimes you might want to make a little definition on it, which is kind of cool. You can define it, put a little edge in there, make it a little more obvious. The foot ring really needs to be something that works with the form of the pot too. So it's something you kind of want to think about when you're looking at your form and thinking about your finished piece. The last thing that I like to do is I just like to take my finger, get it just a little bit of water on it, and just spin it, or just let the wheel spin around. Just take off any of those sharp edges and any of that rough clay surface, just so that this area is kind of smooth. All right, so that's it. That's trimming. I guess the very last step would be to come in and put a signature on, or if you're like me, you could. I have just a little stamp that I use. I just make my little stamp so everybody knows I made it, and that's it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next episode, And remember, love your process, not the piece. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others.